both to our friends who are here in person as well as those who might be joining online. We'll be resuming with our reading of the Ramāyana, and we'll pick up with Sri Rama offering a discourse on devotion to Lakshman. Dispassion results from the practice of virtue, while spiritual wisdom comes of the practice of yoga, and wisdom is the bestower of liberation. So declare the Vedas. And that which melts my heart quickly, dear brother, is devotion, which is the delight of my devotees. It stands by itself and requires no other prop, whereas jnana, knowledge of God in his absolute formless aspect, and vijnana, knowledge of the qualified aspect of God both with and without form, depend on it. Devotion, dear brother, is incomparable and the very root of bliss. It can be acquired only by the favor of saints. I now proceed to tell you at some length the means of acquiring devotion, an easy path by which men find me. In the first place, a man should cultivate excessive devotion to the feet of the Brahmanas, and secondly, he should remain engaged in his own duty according to the lines laid down by the Vedas. This induces an aversion to the pleasures of sense, and dispassion in its turn engenders a love for my cult, the cult of devotion. This will bring steadfastness in the 9 forms of devotion, such as Shravana, hearing of the Lord's praises, etc. And the mind will develop an excessive fondness for my sports. Again, one should be extremely devoted to the lotus feet of saints and should be persistent in the practice of adoration through mind, speech, and action. He should recognize me as his preceptor, father, mother, kinsman, lord, deity, and all, and should be steadfast in my service. A thrill runs through his body as he sings my praises. His voice gets choked and his eyes flow with tears. He is free from lust and other vices, pride and hypocrisy. I am ever at the beck and call of such a devotee. Nay, I ever repose in the lotus heart of those who depend on me in thought, word, and deed, and who worship me in a selfless way. Lakshman was greatly delighted to hear the above discourse on the discipline of bhakti, devotion, and bowed his head at the feet of the Lord. In this way, some days were spent in discoursing on dispassion, spiritual wisdom, goodness, and morality. Now, Ravana had a sister, Supanaka, by name, who was foul-hearted and cruel as a serpent. She once went to Panjavati and was smitten with pangs of love at the sight of the 2 princes. At the very sight of a handsome man, be he her own brother, father, or son, O Guruda. A person like this gets excited and cannot restrain their passion, even as a sunstone emits fire when it is brought in front of the sun. Having assumed a charming form, she approached the Lord and with many a smile addressed the following words to him. There is no man like you and no woman like me. It is with great deliberation that God has made this pair. I have ransacked the 3 spheres, but have found no suitable match for me in the whole universe. It is for this reason that I have till now remained a virgin. My mind has been set at rest a bit only after seeing you. The Lord cast a glance at Sita and said only this much. My younger brother is a bachelor. She went to Lakshman, who, knowing that she was their enemy's sister, looked at his lord and spoke in gentle tones. Listen, fair lady, I am his servant and a dependent. Thus, you will have no comforts with me. My Lord is all-powerful and the sovereign king of Ayodhya. Whatever he does will be worthy of him. A servant who aspires for happiness, a beggar who expects honor, a person addicted to some vice who hopes for riches, a profligate who seeks a blessed state after death, an avaricious man who covets fame, and a proud man who expects the 4 prizes of life. All these men expect to get milk by milking the heavens. Again she turned and came to Sri Rama, but the Lord sent her back to Lakshman. Said Lakshman, he alone will wed you, who deliberately cast all shame to the winds. Thereupon she went fretting and foaming to Sri Rama and revealed her frightful demonic form. The Lord of Agus saw that Sita was terrified and made a sign to his younger brother Lakshman. With great agility, Lakshman struck off her nose and ears, thereby challenging Ravana through her to a contest, as it were. Without nose and ears, she wore a hideous aspect and looked like a mountain flowing with torrents of red ochre. She went sobbing to Kathā and Dushana. Fie, fie upon your manhood and strength, brothers. Questioned by them, she told them everything in detail. Hearing her report, the demon chiefs gathered an army. Swarming multitudes of demons of diverse shapes rushed forth like hosts of winged mountains of Caladium on vehicles of various kinds. They were infinite in number and were armed with terrible weapons of various kinds. They placed at their head Suparnaka, shorn of her ears and nose, and thus presenting an inauspicious sight. Numberless ill omens of a fearful nature occurred to them, but the host heeded them not. Doomed as they all were to death, they roared and bullied and sprang in the air, and the champions were filled with excessive joy to see the army. Said one, "Capture the two brothers alive, and having them captured, kill them and carry off the woman." The vault of heaven was overhung with the dust raised by them. Seeing this, Sri Rama called his younger brother Lakshman and said, "Take Janaka's daughter to some mountain cave. A terrible array of demons has come, therefore remain on your guard." Obedient to his lord's command, he withdrew to a safe retreat with Sita, bow and arrow in hand. When Sri Rama saw the hostile force had advanced, he smiled as he strung his formidable bow. As he coiled his matted locks into a tuft on his head after stringing his formidable bow, it seemed as if a pair of snakes were engaged in a conflict with countless streaks of lightning on a mountain of emerald. Having girded up his quiver at his waist and clasping the bow with his long arms and putting his arrows in order, he looked at the enemy even as a lion would glare at a herd of large elephants. Valiant champions came rushing with all speed, shouting, "Seize him! Seize him!" even as the demons close round upon the rising sun, finding it all alone. Even as they beheld the Lord, the invading warriors could not discharge their arrows. The whole demon host became powerless. Kathā and Dushana summoned their ministers and said, "This prince, whoever he may be, is an ornament of the human race. Of all the Nagas, demons, gods, human beings, and sages that exist in this universe, we have seen, vanquished, or slain many. But during our whole life, listen to us, our brethren all, we have never beheld such beauty. Even though he has disfigured our sister, he does not deserve death. Peerless as he is among men, surrender to us at once the woman you have, put in hiding somewhere, and return home with your life, both you and your brother. Deliver this message of mine to him and return immediately with his reply." The heralds went to Sri Rama and delivered the message to him, in reply to which Sri Rama, smiling, said, "We are warriors by birth and are given to hunting in the woods. Wretches like you are the game that we are tracking. We are never dismayed at the sight of a mighty foe and would give battle to death himself if he ever appeared before us. Though human beings, we are the exterminators of the race of demons, and though youthful in appearance, we are the protectors of the hermits and the torment of the wicked. If you have no strength to fight, you had better return home. I never kill an enemy who has turned his back upon the battlefield. When you have come up to fight, it would be the height of weakness to play willy pranks or to show compassion to your enemy." The heralds returned forthwith and repeated all they had been told. The heart of Kathā and Dushana was on fire when they heard. The heart was on fire, and they exclaimed, "Capture him!" Hearing which, fierce demon champions rushed forth, all armed with bows and arrows, steel clubs, pikes, spears, scimitars, maces, and axes. First of all, the Lord gave his bow a twang, shrill, terrific, and fearful, which deafened and distressed the demons, and they had no sense left in them at that time. Having learnt that they were confronting a powerful enemy, the demon warriors now rushed with caution and began to hurl missiles and weapons of various kinds on Sri Rama. The hero of Raghu's line, however, tore them into pieces as small as sesame seeds, and then drawing the bowstring to his ear, let fly his own arrows. Then the terrible arrows sped forth, hissing like so many serpents. Sri Rama got infuriated in battle, and arrows exceedingly sharp flew from his bow. The demon warriors turned and fled when they found the arrows so very keen. The three brothers, Kathā, Dushana, and Trishira, now flew into rage. "Whoever flees from the battlefield will be killed by us with our own hands." At this, the warriors turned back, fully resolved to die, and made a frontal attack with devotion. Perceiving that the enemy was exceedingly furious, the Lord fitted arrows to his bow and discharged many a shaft of the Naracha type, with the result that frightful fields began to be mowed down. Trunks, heads, arms, hands, and feet began to drop to the ground here, there, and everywhere. Pierced by shafts, they yelled, and their trunks fell like mountains. The bodies of the warriors were torn into 100 pieces, and resorting to deceptive methods, they stood up again. A number of arms and heads flew through the air, and headless trunks ran to and fro. Birds like kites and crows and jackals wrangled in a cruel and awful way. Jackals wrangled, ghosts, spirits, and fiends filled the bowl of skulls with blood. Devils clashed, the heads of slain warriors like cymbals, and the yoginis danced. Sri Rama's fierce arrows tore to pieces the leaders' breasts, arms, and heads. Their bodies fell on every side, but stood up again to fight with terrible cries of seize, capture. Vultures fled away with the end of entrails in their claws, while goblins scampered with the other end held in their hands. One might fancy numberless children of the town of the battlefield were flying kites. A large number of champions that had been smitten or knocked down or whose breasts had been torn lay moaning. Finding their army in distress, leaders like Trishira, Kathā, and Dushana turned towards Sri Rama. Countless demons hurled furiously against the hero of Raghu's line. Arrows, spears, iron clubs, axes, javelins, and daggers, all at once. In the twinkling of an eye, the Lord warded off the enemy's shafts and sent forth his own arrows, planting 10 shafts in the breast of each champion of the demon host. The leaders fell to the ground but rose again and joined in the fray. Yet they would not die and played very many tricks. The gods trembled with fear when they saw that the demons numbered 14,000, while the Lord of Ayodhya was all alone. Finding the gods and sages alarmed, the Lord, who is the controller of Maya, wrought a great miracle. The demons saw one another in the form of Sri Rama, so that the enemy's warriors fought among themselves and perished. They quitted their body crying, Rama, Rama, and thereby attained the state of eternal bliss. Falling back upon the device, the ocean of mercy killed the enemy in an instant. The gods in their exultation rained down flowers, and kettle drums sounded in the heavens, and hymning their praises one after another, they all left, shining in their cars of various patterns. When the Lord of Raghus had vanquished the foe in battle, the gods, human beings, and sages were all rid of fear. Then Lakshman brought Sita back, and as he fell at his feet, the Lord joyously clasped him to his bosom. Sita fixed her gaze on his swarthy and delicate form with utmost affection, but her eyes knew no satiety. Thus dwelling at Panjavati, the blessed Lord of Raghus performed deeds that delighted gods and sages alike. Perceiving the destruction of Kathā and Dushana, Supanaka approached Ravana and instigated him against Sri Rama. In great fury, she rated him in the following words: discarding all thought of your realm, you drink and sleep day and night and take no heed of the enemy, who is now at your very door. Sovereignty without political insight, wealth divorced from virtue, noble deeds that have not been offered to God. And learning which does not beget discrimination is nothing but fruitless labor to the man who has gained such kingdom or wealth, to the doer of the noble acts, and to the student respectively. A recluse is quickly undone by attachment, a king by evil counsel, wisdom by conceit, modesty by drinking, friendship by want of love, and man of merit by vanity. Such is the maxim I have heard. An enemy, a malady, fire, sin, a master, and a serpent are never to be accounted trifles. So saying, and with profuse laments, she set to weeping. In her distress, she threw herself down in Ravana's court, and with many a tear said, do you think, my 10-headed brother, that I should be reduced to this state even though you are alive? On hearing this, the courtiers rose in great bewilderment. Taking her by the arm, they lifted her up and comforted her. Said the king of Lanka, tell me what has happened to you. Who has struck off your nose and ears? 2 sons of Dasharat, the lord of Ayodhya, who are lions among men, are out for hunting in the woods. The estimate that I have formed of their doing is that they will rid the earth of demons, relying on the might of their arm, O 10-headed Ravana. The hermits roam about the woods without fear. Though quite young to look at, they are terrible as death. The staunchest of archers and accomplished in many ways, both brothers are unequaled in might and glory. Devoted to the extermination of the wicked, they are a source of delight to gods and sages. The elder of the 2, who is an abode of beauty, is known by the name Rama. He has with him a young belle. The Creator made that woman the very embodiment of loveliness. 100 million ratis, consort of the god of love, are trifles before her. It was his younger brother Lakshman who chopped off my ears and nose and made a mock of me when he heard that I was your sister. When Kathā and Dushana heard of it, they went to avenge the wrong done to me. But Rama slew the whole army in a trice. The 10-headed demon Ravana burned all over with rage when he heard of the destruction of Kathā, Dushana, and Trishira. Having consoled Supanaka, he boasted of his strength in many ways, but he retired to his palace full of great anxiety and could not sleep the whole night. Among gods, human beings, demons, nagas, and birds, he thought, there is none who can withstand my servants. As for Kathā and Dushana, they were as powerful as myself. Who else could have killed them had it not been the Lord himself? If therefore the Lord himself, the delighter of the gods and the reliever of earth's burden, has appeared on earth, I will go and resolutely fight with him and cross the ocean of mundane existence by falling to his arrows. Adoration is out of the question in this demonic body, which is made up of the principles of ignorance. Therefore, such is my firm resolve in thought, word, and deed, and if there happens to be some mortal princes, I shall conquer them both in battle and carry off the bride. Having thus made up his mind, he mounted his chariot and drove off alone to the spot where Mudika was living by the seashore. Now, hear Uma, the delectable account of the device that Sri Rama employed. When Lakshman had gone to the woods to gather roots, fruits, and bulbs, Sri Rama, the very incarnation of compassion and joy, spoke with a smile to Janaka's daughter. Listen, my darling, who have been staunch in the holy vow of fidelity to me and are so virtuous in conduct. I am going to act a lovely human part. Abide in fire until I have completed the destruction of the demons. No sooner has Sri Rama told her everything in detail than she impressed the image of the Lord's feet on her heart and entered into the fire, leaving him only a shadow of hers. Though precisely of the same appearance and the same amiable and gentle disposition, Lakshman too did not know the secret of what the Lord had done behind the curtain. The 10-headed Ravana approached Mudika and bowed his head to him. Selfish and vile as he was, the meekness of a mean creature is a source of great trouble, like the bending of a goad, bow, snake, or cat. The sugar-coated speech of a villain is as alarming, Bhavani, as the flowers that blossom out of season. After doing him homage, Maricha respectfully inquired of him his errand. Wherefore, my son, are you so much disturbed in mind that you have come all the way alone? The wretched Ravana proudly repeated the whole story to him and added, assume the false appearance of a wily deer so that I may be able to abduct the princess. Maricha, however, remonstrated, listen, Ravana, though disguised as a man, he is a lord of the whole animate and inanimate creation. There can be no quarrel with him, dear son. We die when he would have us die, and live only by his sufferance. Those very princes had gone to guard the sacrifice of the sage Vishwamitra when Sri Rama smote me with a pointless arrow that threw me at a distance of 800 miles in an instant. It will not be good to antagonize them. I find myself reduced to the position of an insect, caught in the nest of a wasp-like winged creature. Inasmuch as I behold the two brothers wherever I look, even if they are human beings, dear son, they are remarkable heroes nonetheless, and opposition to them will not avail. But can he possibly be a man who recklessly killed Taraka and Subahu, broke Shiva's bow, and slew Kathā, Dushana, and Trishira? Therefore, considering the welfare of your race, you had better return home. When he heard this, he flared up and showered many abuses on Maricha. You fool, you presume to teach me as if you were my preceptor. Tell me which warrior in this world is a match for me. Then Marika thought to himself, it does not do one good to make enemies of the following 9. One skilled in the use of a weapon, he who knows one's secret, a powerful master, a dunce, a wealthy man, a physician, a panegyrist, a poet, an expert cook. Either way, he saw he must die. Hence, he sought refuge in the Lord of Raghus. If I argue further, the wretch would kill me. Why then should I not be killed by Sri Rama's arrows? Pondering thus in his mind, he accompanied Ravan. Unremitting in his devotion to Sri Rama's feet, he felt extremely delighted at the thought that he would be able to behold his greatest friend, Sri Rama, even though he would not reveal his joy to Ravana. My eyes will be rewarded when I behold my most beloved Lord to my great exultation, and I shall fix my thoughts on the feet of the All-Merciful, accompanied by Sita and his younger brother. To think that Srihari, the ocean of bliss, whose very wrath confers final beatitude, and who, though subject to none, gives himself up entirely to the will of his devotees, will fit an arrow with his own hands to his bow and slay me. As he runs after me on foot, carrying his bow and arrow, I shall again and again turn in order to get a sight of my Lord. No one else is as blessed as I am. When the 10-headed Ravana drew near to the forest in which Sri Rama had taken up his abode, Marika assumed the false appearance of a deer, so very wonderful as to defy description, with a body of gold artistically inlaid with jewels. When Sita saw the exquisitely beautiful creature, most lovely in every limb, she said, "Listen, my gracious Lord Sri Rama. This deer has a most charming skin. Pray kill this animal, my lord, and get me the hide, true as you are to your word." Thereupon, the Lord of Raghus, even though he knew all the circumstances that had led Marika to assume the semblance of a deer, arose with joy to accomplish the object of the gods. Casting a look at the deer, he girded up his loins with a piece of cloth, and taking the bow in his hand, fitted a shining arrow to the same. The Lord cautioned Lakshman, "A host of demons, brother, roam about in the woods. Take care of Sita with due regard to your strength and circumstances, and making use of your intellect and discretion." The deer took to flight at the sight of the Lord, and Sri Rama ran after it, pulling his bowstring. How strange that he whom the Vedas describe in negative terms, such as a not that, and whom Shiva is unable to catch hold of even in meditation, ran in pursuit of a false deer. Now close at hand, the very next moment it ran away to some distance. At one time it came into view, at another it went out of sight, thus alternately, revealing and concealing itself and practicing every kind of wile. It took the Lord far away. Now Sri Rama took a steady aim and let fly the fatal shaft, when the animal fell to the ground with a fearful cry, first calling aloud to Lakshman, but afterwards mentally invoking Sri Rama. While giving up the ghost, it manifested its real form and lovingly remembered Sri Rama. The omniscient Lord, who could see the love of his heart, conferred on him the state which cannot be easily attained even by the sages. The gods rained down flowers in abundance and sang praises of the Lord. The Lord of Raghus is such a friend of the humble that he conferred his own state on a demon. As soon as he had slain the wretch, the hero of Raghus' line turned back, the charming bow in his hand and the quiver at his waist. When Sita heard the cry of distress, she was seized with excessive fear and said to Lakshman, "Go quickly, your brother is in great peril." Lakshman answered with a smile, "Listen, mother. By the very play of Sri Rama's eyebrows, the entire creation is annihilated. Could he then ever dream of being in danger?" But when Sita urged him with words that cut him to the quick, Lakshman's resolution, for such was Srihari's will, was shaken. He entrusted her to take care of all the sylvan gods and the deities presiding over the quarters, and proceeded to the place where Sri Rama, a veritable Rahu, to the moon-like Ravana, was availing himself of this opportunity. When there was none by the side of Sita, the 10-headed Ravana drew near to her cottage in the guise of a recluse. He, in fear of whom the gods and demons equally trembled, so much so that they could neither sleep by night nor eat their food by day. That very Ravana proceeded on his mission of thieving, looking this side and that like a cur. Even so, the moment a man sets his foot on the path of vice, O Garuda, his bodily glow, reason, and strength completely disappear. Having invented alluring stories of various kinds, he not only showed her the course which was dictated by political wisdom, but also used threats and made love to her. Said Sita, "Listen, O Holy Father, you have spoken like a villain." Then Ravana revealed his real form, and she was terrified when he mentioned his name. Sita plucked all her courage and said, "Stay a while, O wretch, my lord has come. Even as a tiny hare would wed a lioness, so have you wooed your own destruction by setting your heart on me, O king of demons." On hearing these words, the 10-headed Ravana flew into a rage, though in his heart he rejoiced to adore her feet. Full of rage, Ravana now seated her in his chariot and drove through the air in a great flurry. He was so much afraid that he was scarcely able to drive. Ah, Lord of Raghus, peerless champion of the world, reliever of distress and delighter of the suppliant, ah, the sun that gladdens the lotus-like race of Raghu, for what fault of mine you forget, showing mercy. Ah, Lakshman, the fault is none of yours. I have reaped the fruit of the temper I showed. Manifold were the lamentations that Videa's daughter uttered. Though boundless his mercy, my loving Lord is far away. Who will apprise the Lord of my calamity? A donkey would eat the sacrificial oblation. At the sound of Sita's loud wailing, all created beings, whether animate or inanimate, felt distressed. The king of vultures heard the pietous cry and recognized her from her voice, that it was the spouse of Sri Rama, the Lord of Raghu's race, who was being carried away by the vile demon Ravana like a dun cow that had fallen into the hands of some barbarian. Sita, my daughter, fear not, I will kill this demon. The bird darted off in its fury like a thunderbolt hurled against a mountain. Why do you not stop, O villain? You are proceeding fearlessly as if you have not yet known me. When he saw the vulture bearing down upon him like death, the 10-headed monster turned towards him and reflected, is it Mount Manaka, or can it be Garuda, the king of birds? The latter, however, knows my strength, as also his lord, Bhagavan Vishnu. When the bird drew near, he recognized it and said, it is no other than the aged Jatayu. He has come to drop his body at the sanctuary of my hands. At this, the vulture rushed in the excitement of his fury, exclaiming, listen, Ravana, to my advice and return home safely, letting Janaka's daughter alone. Otherwise, despite your many arms, what will happen is this. In the most terrible flame of Sri Rama's wrath, your whole house will be consumed like a moth. Bellicose Ravana, however, gave no answer. The vulture thereupon rushed wildly on and, clutching the demon by his hair, pulled him from the chariot so that he fell to the ground. Having placed Sita in a safe retreat, the vulture turned once more towards Ravana and, striking him with his beak, tore his body. For nearly half an hour, Ravana lay unconscious. Much annoyed at this, the demon now angrily drew his most dreadful sword and cut off Jatayu's head. Invoking Sri Rama and having accomplished marvelous feats, the bird fell to the ground. Ravana took Sita once more into his car and drove off in haste. Greatly alarmed, Sita was borne through the air, lamenting like a frightened doe caught in the trap of a hunter. Perceiving some monkeys perched on a hill, she dropped some cloth, uttering Sri Hari's name. In this manner, Ravana took Sita away and kept her in the Ashok garden. And that concludes our reading of the Ramāyana this evening, and we'll continue next Saturday at 5 p.m. And with the plan to continue to live stream, so those who cannot be here at the temple physically can join online. Thank you for listening. Om.